How do we make things work? How do we guarantee that our processes and procedures run smoothly? How do we ensure that the national security interest is served? These are just some of the big questions that concern the way we facilitate and regulate the conduct of visiting forces here in our country. To facilitate, we mean to effectively and efficiently plan and implement visiting forces activities based on mutual trust and respect to uphold collective security interests. To regulate, on the other hand, is to prevent or mitigate any harm to the people and the environment. To pull off this facilitation and regulation of visiting forces, a set of rules was crafted by several government agencies to define the processes and procedures for the activities of the foreign troops. We call this the Omnibus Implementing Rules and Regulations for Visiting Forces. This Omnibus IRR covers the 5 major phases of visiting forces activities in the country: pre-entry, entry, movement, departure, and post-departure. This video briefly explains what essentially happens in each of these phases. It all starts with a list of approved activities covered by any Status of Forces Agreement or SOFA of the Philippines with another country. The relevant activities in this list would then be planned out with the AFP as the lead agency. This planning would then have the AFP and other concerned agencies conduct initial site surveys, planning conferences, and other related activities. All such activities will then set the motion for the issuance of diplomatic clearance, tax exemption, and special temporary permit to practice healthcare profession in the Philippines. When all these requirements have been met, the aircraft and vessels of the visiting forces are now good for entry into our territory. The aircraft and vessels, and the personnel, cargoes, and vehicles boarding them have to go through proper procedures of quarantine, immigration, and customs. For the quarantine procedure, the commanding officer of the arriving military aircraft or vessel shall present a declaration of health to the quarantine medical officer. Meanwhile, immigration authorities may require the presentation of a personal identity card issued by the foreign government authority as well as the travel authority. For the customs procedure, cargoes brought into the country by military aircraft and vessels shall require a cargo list, while those carried by chartered aircraft or vessels shall require a CTE. During the stay of visiting forces in the Philippines, a movement plan prepared by the AFP shall guide the transport of personnel, cargoes, and vehicles. Several agencies will monitor the movement of equipment, supplies, vehicles, and firearms, as another set of agencies will track the movement of aircraft and vessels. When the time comes that they would depart the country, visiting forces will present the appropriate pre-departure requirements to immigration authorities. These requirements are the personal identity card presented upon their arrival and the travel authority bearing the latest arrival stamp from the Bureau of Immigration. Customs officers, on the other hand, shall require the certificate of tax exemption, re-exportation commitment, and exit clearance permit for the re-exportation of cargoes brought into the country. For aircraft and vessels, exit clearances will be filed and submitted as required by our port authorities. Procedures have also been put in place for the handling and reporting of crimes and other incidents involving visiting forces throughout all the phases. Once the approved activities of visiting forces have been finally carried out, concerned agencies will submit post-activity reports to the Presidential Commission on Visiting Forces. These post-activity reports will then be considered by the PCVF as inputs to the Annual Assessment Report. The Annual Assessment Report shall seek to answer the important question, do our status of forces agreements serve the national security interest? Indeed, it would be impossible to uphold our national security interest without rules and regulations enforced with effectiveness and efficiency. A rigorous whole-of-government approach will make this happen.